Okay, if you haven't already, please turn your cell phones either down, off, or in the wastebasket. And we'll start out with the students of the month, and feel free.
Yeah, she's a lifelong learner.
Holy cow. Hello, and welcome to the students. The Exchange Club would certainly like to welcome you and honor you for all the things you have done so far through your almost 3.5 years of high school. And as usual, we're honoring LaPorte High School, Michigan City Marquette, and Michigan City High School. And just a brief overview again to refresh your memory of the criteria used for the selection of Student of the Month. And a great deal of credit, if not all of it, goes to the counselors from the different high schools. We rely on them to give us information and names of students who are deserving of this award, and we just kind of follow through with their recommendations. So we really appreciate that. And we ask them to base their selections. One thing is the GPA, but that's not the only thing. Other things we are interested in, and the same as the Exchange Club, we're interested in service that they do in and around the community, either at the school, in the community itself, church group, whatever it might be, their clubs, and any volunteer effort that they make. And also, a lot of them, and after you hear a couple of them, you'll wonder how they do it, but they're also employed and work anywhere from 15, 20, 25 hours a week, whatever I'm not sure what the limit is of the rule now, but a lot of them are there. Before I get started with the introductions of the students, I would like to introduce and Jim Fisher is my right-hand man, and Pat Doherty is a great help, but for some reason Pat's not here today. He's probably at the library studying. If Jim would, I would like for him to introduce the counselors that are seated at the table today who have escorted the students here.
As Phil has already said, we owe so much to the counselors. They make the selection for each of the students each month for 6 months through the year. And they take our guidelines as Phil just outlined them, and they always pick wonderful, wonderful candidates for these awards. So thank you. From LaPorte, I'd like to introduce you to Gary Wiley and Jara Barnes. From Marquette High School here in Michigan City, Mary Kay Mark. And from Michigan City High School, the quiet one, Linda Meyer.
Each student of the month will receive a plaque such as this, and it has the Exchange Club logo on it, and it's addressed as Student of the Month, and then their high school, and the month and year which they are the recipient of this award. So before we get started, I had talked to Representative Pelath before he had to go to another meeting, and I've asked him to present these plaques to the students. What did I get the wrong one? We're going to get started with LaPorte High School. Abigail Jones Withrow, would you please come forward?
Thank you.
Now you get to speak.
Well, thank you for this. This is really awesome. It's a great honor. My name's Abby Withrow. I go to LaPorte High School. I'm 18 years old. I participate in debate at my school. I'm really active in that. I've done it since freshman year. It's really important to me. And it's helped me to choose my possible career path, which is political science, international business. I also am active in student council. We go to the county home at least once or twice every month, and we visit with the residents there, and we play bingo with them. We have pizza parties. We're actually having a Halloween party with them next month, or this month. It's October now. And I participate in Girl Reserves at LaPorte. It's a volunteer organization. We get, I'm on cabinet, so I get about 50 hours of community service each year. I coached a T-ball team this summer for volunteer, and I also do homework help at the elementary schools in LaPorte. I went to Hoosier Girls State this summer, where I learned about the Indiana government, and I was elected mayor of my city, and it was a really awesome experience. And I hope to study international business and political science at either IU, Loyola University of Chicago, or Wake Forest. So, I mean, that's pretty much all there is about me. I really do enjoy volunteering, and it's one of the most important parts of what I do at high school. So, thank you.
I'm going to get a picture with the representative.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to honor from Marquette High School, Samantha Fanson.
I'm Samantha Fanson. I attend Marquette. I'm a senior there, and I am very active in service. I have volunteered at Pine Elementary, Queens, and the Boys and Girls Club in Michigan City. I'm very active on academic teams. I've done Science Olympiad, Academic Super Bowl, Academic Decathlon, and I've also done the Foreign Language Club. And we have dinners and we do celebrations for each of the countries that we celebrate each month. I've also hosted a French exchange student last year. It was a really great experience. And this past summer, I also got to go visit her, and I stayed 3 weeks in France. So French is one of my passions. And I hope to study biology in college and a pre-med track, and maybe attend Loyola University or University of Chicago. Thank you.
All right, now we pivot this way. Very good.
And last but not least, from Michigan City High School, Monica Zachnow.
Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank you all for having me here today. I'm very honored to be recognized with all these, amazing young women. My name is Monica Zachnow, and I'm a senior at Michigan City High School. I love to do community service, just like the other ladies I'm being honored with today. A little bit of what I'm involved in is at my school, I am president of the National Honor Society. I'm also president of the French Club, and I am the editor of our student newspaper. I am involved in our International Thespian Society, as well as our Foreign Language Honor Society. Outside of school, I am president of the Teen Court, Michigan City Teen Court, which is an amazing program that gives second chances to minors who have committed first-time offenses. And it's great. It's a great, I guess, loophole to get them out of going through the juvenile system. Teen Court's a really great rehabilitation, I guess, for teens. And besides that, I'm also an assistant teacher, I guess, at a program called Tiny Seeds, which is through Queen of All Saints Church. It is Sunday school for kindergarten, pre-K through kindergarten level children. And also this past summer, just like Sammy, I do also have a passion for French. I participated in a program called the IU Honors Program for Foreign Languages through Indiana University, in which I was sent to a city in France for 7 weeks. I was sent to school there, and we couldn't speak English the whole 7 weeks we were there, so I'm grateful that I did learn a lot. And I'm back here now. I'm trying to get more involved in the community so I can give back to my peers and the rest of Michigan City. Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, congratulations to the recipients for... Forgot about you, Andy. Probably just got this half. Anyhow, congratulations to the recipients of the Student of the Month Award. And again, thank you to the membership for allowing this to take place. That's greatly appreciated. Our next Student of the Month will be next month, and we'll be back to the third Tuesday in November. So look forward to seeing all of you then. One other thing.
We do have a speaker that the principal from.
I was going to ask you about it. And our speaker will be the Van Tonico from LaPorte High School, the principal. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, again, congratulations to the ladies. Hope you continue on the field where you're at. Okay, now we'll move on. Mr. Dempsey will announce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Congratulations, students. So happy to have State Representative Scott Pelath with us today. He's a busy man. He just did an interview in another room, and we have him for now. I also asked Jack Arnett to be with us today. Jack is the Executive Director of the LaPorte County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I didn't know how many of you knew that Jack and his office are in constant contact with Scott and his office. We now have superboat power races in LaPorte County, as well as many other things. I'm going to ask Jack Arnett to come up and say a few quick words and introduce Scott. So please welcome Jack Arnett.
Hi, everyone. When Mike got a hold of me and told me I was going to get the honor to introduce our good friend Scott, I asked him, how long do I get? Because I just, going through my mind, I'm thinking I could talk for a long time about Scotty. And it's coming. It's coming. Mike says, Jack, you can talk all you want, but 1 o'clock, we're leaving. So with that in mind, we'll make this part of it quick and get Scotty up here, so because he is, of course, the honored speaker today. Scott doesn't need an introduction in this room. As I look around all the friends we have in this room and all those of you that do work in our community, I think it's clear to all of us what Scott Pelath does for our community. I think as I spend time in the Senate and the halls of the legislature during session, words that I hear about Scott are things like hardworking, honorable. I think Scott is well known for representing the common folk, the working folks. That's something that kind of sticks with Scott as you think back. When Roger did the invocation, I think he summed it up best when he said, making LaPorte County a better place. I can't think of anyone that fits into that category better than Scott Pelath, of making this a better place to live for all of us. I am honored to get a chance to introduce my good friend, Scott Pelath, Representative Pelath.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, that was enthusiastic. No, you are a great bunch of guys, and I think it's maybe been close to 2 years since I've been here, and this is always a real thrill. It's just great to get to see Wally's face. I mean, that makes my whole day. And I did want to apologize a little bit because as you know, over the past year, I've been your state representative since 1998, but I also became the House Minority Leader. So I have a lot of statewide responsibilities in addition to having the responsibilities I have to you. So that means that someday I'm having to drive down to Evansville. By the way, you can't get there from here. Or maybe you got to, or Fort Wayne, or Indianapolis. I'm down there about once a week. It's just part of what I have to do. So I appreciate your patience with that. A little bit ago, the reason I actually asked for a take-home plate to be made up because I had to go talk to National Public Radio down in Indianapolis. They wanted my time, and I refused to reschedule this because of that. So I'm grateful that you allowed me to do both. One thing that I'm not going to delve into today, because I don't know about it any more than you do, and that's the national government shutdown, the fears about the debt limit that's going to be broached here fairly soon. I'm an observer as you are. I can probably talk a little bit about what some of the implications might be in Indiana, but I'm like you. I hope that cooler heads prevail and they get this thing solved very, very quickly, because it's the consequences of not doing it are too severe. Hopefully, and I've been through this before, you get to a point when the egos have had enough, then you can get down to business and get it done. And I hope that's where we'll be soon. I want to talk a little bit, before I get into some policy, let me understand what my duties as the minority leader are. First of all, I'm the guy that the Speaker talks to when the Republican Speaker of the House, when he wants to manage the general business of the chamber. I'm the procedural leader of the Democratic Party. I'm the one that appoints Democrats to committees. I'm the one that is responsible for a whole myriad of administrative functions. I'm in charge of the staff, but my biggest job is to be the spokesperson for an overall message. Now, that doesn't mean that members agree all the time or Democrats all agree, but I try to set a general tone. And I always preach to the Democratic members, time after time after time, I said, look, it is the majority party's sacred duty to govern. They have to govern the state. I've been in the majority before. You have to govern. You have to make sure that the wheels of state are moving. It's the minority party's job to do three different things. First is to help. You didn't expect me to say that right off the first duty is to help. If you believe something is for good of the state, and I'm going to talk about a couple things where we've tried to help, you help. And believe it or not, that happens more often than not. You see votes in the House of Representatives over in the Senate. A lot of them are unanimous. A lot of them are overwhelming. Some of them pass with a few Republicans voting no, a lot of Democrats voting yes. That's typical. Most of the issues are not the huge things that you see about on the news. So that's the first duty, is to help. The second one, and this is important, is to critique. The Speaker of the House understands this. We talk. We're friends. He knows it's my job to critique what the majority party is doing. Now, you're not critiquing just because you want to be a naysayer, you want to be mean. You have to identify flaws so things are improved. It helps make the policy better. So that's an important job of the minority party. The third, and I think the most important one, is to provide alternatives. Because if you're not providing alternatives, when election time rolls around, people don't have a choice. All right, and people should have choices, because we don't disagree about stuff. You know, nobody in this room disagrees about everything. So there has to be ways where we reflect the general will of the people. And you do that by having enlightened debates, trying to keep them not so mean, trying to keep them on the issues. That isn't always perfect, but you got to provide alternatives. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those alternatives today. I'm going to issue a few general criticisms, then I'm going to talk about some areas where I think that both parties can do a better job working together. But I think it's now time, since we've had about 10 years now of this state's economic policy, that we really consider that, you know, look, let's be honest, the nation isn't doing all that good right now. Indiana's not doing quite as good as the rest of the nation. And we need to examine why that is. Let's look at some of the major economic initiatives that we've had over the past decade, and let's see what some of the end results are. Remember major moves when we leased the toll road? Okay, very unpopular around here, not unpopular everywhere in Indiana. Okay, here it hit a lot of emotion about the toll road being leased out for a period of time, but there was support in other parts of the state. That was touted as a major economic initiative. Another one that was done immediately. Remember daylight savings time being adopted for the whole state? We get on the same time as the financial markets out in Wall Street. There'd be less confusion about when planes were supposed to land here, all that sort of thing. That was expected to be an economic boon. That's been, to this point, very unidentifiable. Talk about some specific taxation things. You know, Indiana is a very good state when it comes to business taxation. We're consistently rated in the top 10 or 12 as being good for business. I think that's a good thing. I'm for business too. We all like business. But we've taken some additional steps. One was we cut the corporate income tax in half. We've cut the financial institutions tax in half that banks pay, so that's something that was done. Just last year, we did a very small, in my opinion, not very effective cut in the individual income tax. It's going to amount to $1 or $2 a week, a couple bucks down the road, but that was a tax reduction that was done. We've privatized major parts of state government, turned it over to the business community. Remember, the Family and Social Services Administration, a lot of it was turned over to a company that was supposed to run it better. But the fact of the matter is that in the interest of saving costs, a lot of public functions have been shifted over to the private sector, and that's one thing that's been done, ostensibly in the interest of creating jobs. If you remember, we've had 2 different property tax crises over the past decade. And you may not recall, we used to pay 5 cents in sales tax. Now we pay 7 cents in sales tax. Well, that tax change was made in the grand sense in order to reduce the property tax burden. So that was a major change. Something I talked to you about a couple years ago, which was right to work. And I know that there's a lot of dissension here, but that wasn't something aimed at organized labor, but that was touted as something that would bring a lot of business into the state. And then finally, let's not forget that a lot of government services have been reduced in order to make sure that the state's bottom line, its surplus, which is now over a couple $2 billion, remain healthy. So those things have all been debated and passed over the past decade. And by the way, I supported a couple of these, so I don't want you to think that I'm letting myself off the hook. We're all in this together. A couple of these things I supported, or at least supported them in part. But let's evaluate the results. Let's now look at the results of how we're doing here in Indiana. Well, the first thing we can't forget is Indiana's unemployment rate, or excuse me, the nation's unemployment rate is not good. It's over 7%. Indiana's unemployment rate remains a point higher than the rest of the nation. And that has been set in stone for most of the past year and doesn't seem to be getting any better. So we've got an unemployment problem. Joe Corr knows that. He sees it every day. But beyond unemployment, unemployment sometimes it can be cyclical. Sometimes there's things beyond your control. Sometimes you're within a broader national or international setting. But as much as that is a problem, there's another problem that we overlook too much that is just as important. And that's our wage rate and our per capita income. Because that gets to the heart of what some of our state's economic problems are. Now, just in August, Ball State released a comprehensive study. So this isn't my stuff. This is from Ball State University, did a very long analysis of why we're behind the rest of the nation in terms of what we earn. What we learned is, first of all, the purchasing power of our wages here in this state are 14 years behind the rest of the nation. Okay? That's troubling. We're not the worst in the country, but we're not very good. Second of all, we're now 40th out of 50 states in per capita income. That means not a lot of purchasing power. That means a shrinking middle class. That means not enough people with paychecks to go spend at businesses to create jobs for other people. Because let's remember, in an economy, you don't just need investors, you don't just need business chieftains, you got to have people to go buy the stuff too. You got to have both, which is really my argument to you here today. We can't just only ever focus on one side of the ledger, we got to focus on both. You need investors and consumers. So that's a problem. Our median household income, that's a different measure. This is from Bureau of Labor Statistics. That is what your middle household earns in a year, okay, for a family of 4. We're $4,000 behind the rest of the country. Our fellow Americans, not individuals, households, families, they have $4,000 less on average than our fellow Americans. And then finally, and this is often isn't thought about, but Indiana's health care, the health of our population, tends to lag. All sorts of factors like low birth weight would be an example, particularly up here in Northwest Indiana. Incidences of things like smoking and certain types of disease and hypertension. We're not quite as healthy as a population as the rest of Americans. But the reason for that, the statistical correlation, goes back to income. As people earn better, they're also healthier. That makes sense to a lot of us. You know, you're having a productive life, you're earning enough, those folks tend to be healthier. When you're stressed, people tend to be less healthy. That's an unavoidable factor. So those are some of the results that we have to be honest with, and we have to discuss freely as we're thinking about, okay, what's done is done in our state. How do we move forward? How do we make this about the future? Now, what I want to say of my criticism of some of the economic leadership of this state is that it's been solely focused on the investor side. We need people to invest in our state, but we already have a good climate for investment in this state. We have fair business taxes. There's plenty of reasons why people should want to locate here in Indiana. We have interstates flowing through here. We have a lot of railroads. There's reasons that people should want to be here. But what we're missing is a highly trained workforce. That's what we're missing, because that's one thing that employers need. We're missing a strong enough middle class earning wages so they can drive the consumer market here in Indiana. Because let's not forget, that's part of economic development, how much purchasing power the middle class has. And we just need to focus on the demand side more and not just the supply side. Now, I want to talk about something that Governor Pence and I got together and agreed upon completely, and something we started to work together on. And I'm proud of it. Because to my Republican friends in here, and there's a few. There's a few. There's a few. I see him around.
Where's Mr. Miller?
Yeah, there he is. Yeah, Mayor. Look, I like Mike Pence. I like Mike Pence. I like it that I can go into his office and have a reasonable conversation. We don't agree on a lot because we're philosophically very different, and that's okay. But we can talk long enough where we can identify the things we do agree on. And one thing we absolutely agreed on is that, one, you've got jobs open now, because I live this as an employer in my own line of work. You have jobs open now and not enough qualified people to fill them. And then you have the jobs that are going to be open tomorrow, and people don't have the skills they're going to need to fill those jobs. That's one of the things we need here in Indiana. Because of the same Ball State report I just cited, there's only one solution that they knew for sure would solve our per capita income problem. There's lots of things can solve it over the long term, but that's 20, 30 year cycle sorts of things. But something we can address now would solve this problem. It sounds so simple, but it's very complicated. Recruit high-income workers and retain high-income workers. That comes down to skills. That comes down to investing in our workforce. Now, as we look for solutions to this problem, that's what I would stress to you. It's not solely about our K through 12 education, and that's a big part of it. It's also about adults. It's also about adults, people that maybe worked 25 years at the steel mills, and they don't have a job out there anymore. How are they going to get the new skills in order to fill the new jobs that are going to be available? That's what we need to be focusing on as a state. Now, I work with the governor and the speaker and the leaders of the Senate in order to create an Indiana Career Council. It's not a solution, but it's a first step. What it is, it includes the governor, the lieutenant governor, it includes the state superintendent of public instruction, it includes legislative leaders, it includes collegiate presidents, it includes institutions like Ivy Tech, it includes agency heads to try to address this skills gap problem. Because that's the only way we're going to get Indiana's economy caught back up with the rest of the nation, which is to invest in our workforce. But the biggest thing is we have to understand what it is that we're already doing. Because what we've learned is we've got all these silos in state government. Joe, I keep looking at you, but I think you live this so much. You have businesses that train their own workers. Okay? You have trade unions that train their own workers. You have institutions like the Department of Workforce Development that are responsible for getting the unemployed matched up with jobs. You have institutions like Ivy Tech, which they're not there to give someone a 4-year college degree, they're there to get them some new skills. You have even things like the Family and Social Services Administration that have programs they run with respect to welfare to work and those types of initiatives. Well, guess what? None of these people talk to each other. They don't. So that's one modest step that we took this year. And I'm very proud of it because it's an instance when both parties can work together. It's not a solution, but it's a start. And I think we all understand that we've got to get more higher wage workers in the state. We have to build them and we have to keep them. That's not going to be easy, but I think that needs to be a bipartisan goal. And the other reason I wanted to talk about that is because you see what's going on out in Washington. By the way, there's a lot of reasons for that. I'll share a couple quick theories. You know, we don't have Walter Cronkite anymore in this country. You know, now people get to go hear the news that they want instead of hear the news that they need. You know, the liberals will go watch MSNBC, your conservatives will go watch Fox, people will dilly-dally around with CNN, they'll get on the internet and pick out the website they want. We don't get the same sets of information that we used to. So that's one problem. The other one, frankly, is computerized redistricting. Because as mad as people are at Congress, 8% unemployment, guess what? You take each individual member of Congress, their constituents aren't mad at them. Their constituents aren't mad at them. So that's a problem, and I don't know what the solution for that is as a nation, but we're going to have to grapple with that as we continue to have these standstills. But what I did want to do is at least try and contrast Indiana government with state government. Do we get mad at each other at the State House? You bet ya. Are we going to keep doing it? Yeah. Part of that's our job. You guys get mad at each other. You guys disagree, so we go down there to disagree. But where we need to be better is when we do disagree, or excuse me, where we do agree, we have to be able to accomplish those things. That's the problem in Washington. They can't even do the things they do agree on. And that's what we need to get better, and I'm hopeful at the state level, and I hope partly through my leadership is the Democratic leader, at times working with the Republican leadership, that we can restore people's faith in their institutions. So with that, I thank you, everybody. You're a good group. And Mr. President, should I take any questions, or are you going to throw me off?
Well, you seem to have everyone's attention. If they don't mind, we can take a few questions.
All right, I'd love to take a few questions. Yes, Mr. Core.
Just a comment.
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you what, for the first time in probably 7 or 8 years that I've been involved with this career path alignment, which I believe is critical to doing what you just supported, I think the positive thing to look at this is that Governor Pence, both the Republicans and the Democrats, are totally on board to help create this career path within our school system. It's not one against it and one for it now. They realize that they got to get on the same bandwagon. And Scott's exactly right. And I have to thank you for the help and the support that you give us down there.
Thank you. And that's going to make everybody better. You know what? And we see some of them here. Who's going to major in political science? All right. I might want to talk to you about that. But you know what? I'm not going to contradict your counselor, I promise. But in any case, we need to understand what young people are going to be college bound and what people we need to do those highly skilled jobs that really drive our economy. We need to identify that better. But even more than that, Joe, I think we need to make the kids enthused about the track that they're on, because there are things to be proud of.
Absolutely. We just need to do a better job, Scott, in our school system to get the students, through their counselors, to understand what's really available out there. I tell the famous story with the Partnership program that we're going to put in process there before much longer, probably within the next couple of weeks, where a student will be able to create a career path between Ivy Tech and the Indiana State Regional Council of Carpenters through the high school program with dual credit, the same thing we're doing in our universities, and they'll automatically be taken into the Carpenter Apprenticeship program. That is real close to being released. And that's the kind of involvement that we need to have happen. And they get these kids to make them higher wages.
Yes, sir. Good. Yes, sir.
Scott, how do we deal with the fact, at least this is my perception,
Sure.
I think most people's, that in government today, we have too many politicians and not enough statesmen or stateswomen?
That's a pretty good, that's a heck of a question. The fact, and I don't have an easy answer to that, but we all, I can only speak to the people I serve with. They try to do a good job for their constituents more often than not. They try to reflect the will of the people who elected them more often than not. They try to do what most of their folks back home want more often than not. But where we do run into problems, and now I'm going to talk, this is where I think our problems are. You've got, as I mentioned, the way information flows, and people sometimes start to cater to the extremes instead of where the center is. Also, the way that legislative districts are drawn, which incentivize people to play to the extreme rather than where most people are in the center. There's also one more thing, and we can't ignore it, and that's the effect of money in politics, in big money in electioneering. I've liked some things our U.S. Supreme Court does. I don't like some things that they do. I'm very proud that Chief Justice John Roberts went to Notre Dame Elementary over here. I brag about it all the time. But one decision that's been very harmful for our nation is the Citizens United decision, which allows endless amounts of money without accountability to be spent in campaigns. I'm not sure that we won't have to even embrace some sort of a constitutional amendment on that one day if there's no other choice. I think if you can get the big money out of politics, then you will see more statesmen and fewer politicians. And by the way, you're always going to have some politicians around, and sometimes we even like a few politicians. But I think that would be a help. It would be a help. We're at an undeniably difficult time. This is, and it would be senseless to say that we're not. Yes, Bruce.
One way to address exactly what he said would be term limits in federal government. I mean, that's it's not. It shouldn't be a career.
Right.
When their limits are up, they should have to go get a job just like you and I or anybody else. I mean, that's addressing his. The question I had was when you talk about creating more jobs and better jobs and higher paying jobs through what you and Joe are discussing. What about the less capable in terms of learning all of this kind of stuff, who are many minimum wage workers? What about, I'd like to know what your take is on raising the minimum wage.
Well, okay, I'm a Democrat. I always think it's a good idea to raise the minimum wage within reason, because I don't think you can live on $7.50 an hour. And I think I'm going to give you the economic analysis that I have read and studied, is that sometimes there can be some negative side effects to raising the minimum wage, but the positive effects of raising the minimum wage outweigh the negative effects, because you've got more consumer income, and those consumers pay their bills more, pay their bills on time, and that helps business in the back end. And too often we look at things microeconomically instead of macroeconomically. So I've supported raising the minimum wage in the past. And look, we all understand that there's limits to that. You can't say we all know you can't say, okay, everyone's going to make $100 an hour. Well, nothing would work there. But there's sensible living, common sense changes that you can make, and it needs to be altered every so often. That's my opinion. Reasonable minds can disagree, but I've always supported reasonable increases. Anybody else? They're going to start applauding, so applaud. All right, thank you.
All right, before you leave.
Want me to read it out?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, the winning ticket, is this for 50-50?
It's the 50-50.
50-50, 044027.
027, last three something. Hey!
Lou Weber.
Our man Lou. Okay, now guys, remember next week the meeting is a half hour early, so the doors will open 11 o'clock instead of 11:30. Okay, see you next week.